afternoon, everybody, and I won't try to take too long here, but one of the things we enjoy, or glad to have all the group here, and as, you know, one of those government-funded organizations, I have a certain amount of reporting that I have to do. And one of the things we'd like to do is ask for you to give us a couple check marks here, or actually hash marks, as to, actually as race and ethnicity, just some of the demographics, so we can let folks know who was here. So with that, that's the key piece I wanted to say. And the other thing is, if you're interested in forestry and stuff like that, we did and are going to host the Tri-State Forestry Conference again this year, and it is March 2nd. So, and that is fresh off the presses. So at Highland Community College in Freeport. We unfortunately lost the location in Seminole Mounds as a host location, but glad to have it in our backyard. So
are you
that's
still going to have the turkey lunch? Like they did at Cincinnati?
I'm not going to guarantee that one. I have a suspicion that it may be roast beef and it may be turkey. I'm not sure what the other one is.
That was pretty good. They put together.
I think the food's going to be pretty good as well.
So, Jay, you're going to have that to pass around, and people just, or you guys meet people as they head out?
There are actually 3 great clipboards. There's one here. Jerry's got one circled around here, and I'll start this one down through the back group here. So after you finish, just drop it back to me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for helping organize this and having the extension service help with the online registration. That was a great resource. This afternoon we've got 6 panelists up here to take questions. 3 of them were in this morning's talk. I'd like to introduce the other 3 that are new to you. We have John Burke with the National Wild Turkey Federation. Then we have Daryl Coates with the Pheasants Quail Forever group that conduct as the prescribed burn coordinator for that organization. And then we have Tony Kolpenbar, get that right? Okay. Of the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. He's with the Recreational Access Program that allows for private landowners to open their property by minimizing risks and liability through the state. So I'm going to give them a chance to touch upon that. John, what, you want to give a couple, you want to talk from there or you want to come up here?
I got your slides. Slides? Yep, got your slides. So just hit the arrow and it'll go right into your slides.
Thank you. Again, my name is John Burke, and I'm a district biologist for National Wild Turkey Federation. I live in central Missouri, but I cover Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri, and I've been asked to speak a little bit about who the National Wild Turkey Federation is and what our role is in prescribed burning. We started off in early 1973. It was basically a group of concerned turkey hunters that wanted to address, they wanted turkeys to do better. So we were kind of, our foundation was we're a research-based organization, and then we went on to basically one of the things that separates us from a lot of the other, I think it's unique to Turkey Federation, is that we have a technical committee, and basically the technical committee is the state biologist that's responsible for the turkey population or turkey management in their respective states. And throughout the history of our organization, basically every project that's approved has to be signed off on by that person. So they're kind of serve as in an advisory capacity with myself to kind of guide our national or our state boards on how we spend our money to do better turkey management. Then of course track transfer, we were very involved in that process, and the restoration of wild turkey is probably one of the single greatest wildlife management success stories of modern times. So we have a role in that. And now, you know, that we restored them pretty much by the year 2000. We had turkeys everywhere that you could have turkeys. And then from that point forward, it was, you know, how are we going to take care of them? And then another thing that I really like about our organization is that our mission is the conservation of wild turkey and the preservation of the hunting heritage, and that second part is just as important as the first. And that's something that I really like about our organization and why I like to work for them. Save the habitat, save the hunt. That was one of the pieces of, once we got the turkeys here, well, okay, great job, Turkey Federation. We don't need you anymore. We got plenty of turkeys everywhere. But the process of taking care of them once they're here was kind of driven behind initiatives, and one of the first initiatives was the Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt initiative, which was a 10-year initiative between 2012 and we wrapped it up in 22. And the goals were basically, the national goals were to conserve and enhance 4 million acres of good habitat, recruit 1.5 million new hunters, and create access to an additional 500,000 acres of habitat. And each state, including Illinois, had kind of a state plan that stepped up into this national goals. And we achieved all those goals by the year 2020. And a little over 5 million acres conserved and enhanced, a little over 1.5 million hunters recruited, and over 700,000 acres of additional hunting land gained access to. So what's next? Again, this initiative-driven conservation is kind of where we're going to hang our hat. One of the things that's also kind of unique is that the year of 2023 was our 50-year calendar anniversary, and we set goals specific to that year, and we achieved every one but the membership goal. We set 250,000 adult members nationally, and we hit about 228. The one thing I want to focus on is the research portion of it. We set a goal of 500,000. We actually did $532,000, which was matched by $9 million partner dollars, and that was the biggest single-year contribution to turkey research in the history of our organization. And one of the things, why the research is so important is, I think most folks, particularly in eastern Turkey's range, know that we're kind of declining. What we had in the early 2000s is not what we have today, and so we're focusing our research efforts on that. And what we're finding is, the research tells us is that the poult survival is the difference. The poult survival rates that we saw in the early 2000s were significantly lower than that now. So now we're devoting a lot of our research energies on why is that. The why is that is the quality brood range is not what it used to be. And the research is telling us that when you have quality brood range close to good nesting habitat, that is what addresses the decline. The better you do at that, the more turkeys you can have. And then, from an initiative standpoint, the western states kind of drove this startup because we didn't have the chapter system. Obviously, not a lot of turkeys in the west. So but they had a lot of public land, big, state and federal agencies. So we were working on a large landscape level with a lot of partners because that's the only way we could be effective. Well, we're kind of taking that model and bringing it east. The White Oak Initiative isn't ours, but it's one we're involved in. One that is ours is the Habitat for the Hatch that we launched this summer. There's a little piece of it in extreme southern Illinois, but we're working on one that would cover basically the rest of the Midwest. And it's going to be focused primarily on that, trying to make more brood range close to good quality nesting habitat. And fire is the most effective way to get good quality brood range habitat close to good nesting habitat. That's what creates it, that's what maintains it. The Turkey Federation's role in that, primarily what we do is we are kind of a lot of the equipment here in Illinois, and basically all three of my states, burn trailers, both with the state and the federal agencies. I'm just closing up a project with the Shawnee National Forest to basically purchase the Dragon Age, basically for their aerial ignition. But a lot of the prescribed burn associations in Missouri, and some of them here, the equipment they're using, we help buy. Our foresters, we've got two, trying to hire a third. They write burn plans, so that's another way that we contribute to prescribed fire. And then, again, we've also provided position support funding. SIPA's been around for a while, and we've been basically supporting them in the Great Rivers Habitat PBA since 2014. So that in a nutshell is who we are and what we do with prescribed plan.
Thanks, John. Next up, we have Daryl and Katie. I think both of you were going to come up. Or Katie, okay. To talk about pheasants and quail forever and their processes of prescribed burns and what they do.
So hi everyone, my name is Katie Koslerich. I am the Illinois State Coordinator for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. And I'll have Daryl introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Daryl Coates. I just joined Pheasants Forever as the Northern Burn Coordinator, and so that's who I am.
So just like John just did with NWTF, we're going to kind of let you guys know a little bit about who and what Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever does. It's kind of a good thing to do at the start of these because we are a hunter conservation organization and we are a grassroots volunteer-based organization. So sometimes there are some preconceived notions about what we do that don't always align with what our actual mission and vision is. So with that, our mission is to conserve pheasant, quail, and other wildlife through habitat improvement, public access, education, and conservation advocacy. Our organization started in 1982. There was a gentleman up in St. Paul, Minnesota. He was out pheasant hunting and he watched a rooster pheasant go across a plowed up cornfield during a snowstorm and essentially freeze and starve to death and die in front of him. And it led him to kind of introspectively write this piece in the newspaper about what's going to happen to our pheasant population as the habitat loss continues with the developments in agriculture. And it generated this huge spark of interest. Hundreds of people wrote in, and there was some individuals that read this article and said, we can do something and we need to do something. The first Pheasants Forever committee meeting was 12 individuals, and from those 12 individuals, we now have 700 volunteer chapters throughout the United States. We also now are the second wildlife resource conservation hiring agency after U.S. Fish and Wildlife, with we're fluctuating right around 600 employees across the United States. So from that one newspaper article, we've grown from just 12 people to quite a big group, especially in the last year. We do have Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. That is another misconception about us, is that we are two different entities. We are the same entity. We have the same mission, the same staff, and the same initiatives that we put forth. The only difference is there used to be another entity called Quail Unlimited that unfortunately they were not able to enter, and we came in and took over their area of the range because pheasants don't exist in all of the United States, but quail do. So even though they have two different names and two different species, it is the exact same mission. And we do work on doing habitat, public access, and we have 4 pillars that we go on. The first, and it's what I'm betting a lot of you guys in here are very interested in, is improving wildlife habitat on both public and private lands. In Illinois, we are vastly working, the majority of our work is on private lands. I'll talk about those resources we have just a few slides from now. We do a little bit of work on public lands, but most of Illinois is privately owned, so that's where we focus our work. We also do some advocacy. We have a team out in Washington that works on promoting and encouraging conservation-focused funding. I'm not sure if you guys have been hearing, there's a burn bill coming up pretty soon, a new burn bill. We've been working quite heavily on speaking to different politicians on Washington, D.C. on the Hill to try and increase the amount of conservation that those programs can do. Along with we do public access. We do occasionally in Illinois do land acquisitions. Many times when we do those land acquisitions, we typically are gifting them to either a state agency or a federal agency like IDNR or U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And sometimes we do also partner with park districts or conservation districts too on those if it is something that fits with our goals and our mission. And then the last is education. So events just like this, education. We also do other learn to hunt events, and different types of programs across all of Illinois. We do have sort of two different functions within our organization. We have the volunteer base. The volunteers are what started us out. They are what got us to this point. We have 700 volunteer chapters across the nation. In Illinois, we have 57 of them. And we are looking at restarting. We traditionally had approximately 67 to 65 chapters. But, you know, like everybody else, we did take a little bit of a hit during COVID on the volunteer side of things. If you are interested in joining one of our volunteer groups, this is our map, and I did not know you were going to come here, and you know who you are. Can I throw you under the bus and have them talk to you?
Sure.
All right, good. If you're interested in joining one of the chapters, we do have the president of the Joe Davies Pheasants Forever chapter here. Woody, I don't know what your first name is. I've always known you as Woody.
Good enough.
Okay. So, on the other side of that, we have actually seen quite significant growth during COVID is actually on our staffing side for employees with Pheasants Forever. In FY24 or FY23, our staff did 24,000 acres of conservation assistance in Illinois. Most of that work was done, we work out of the USDA offices under the branch of the Natural Resource Conservation Service, the NRCS. Our staff are housed in those offices providing technical assistance to landowners to help them be enrolled or enrolled into different conservation programs. We also have a precision ag conservation position. It is based out of East Central Illinois, but he does do work across all of Illinois, and what he does is he works with farmers to analyze their profit loss yields to see where there might be places that it would be more financially beneficial for farmers to put that into conservation programs than continuing to farm those acres at a loss. And we've been finding a lot of times when you pull those lost acres out, you actually increase the yield across the entire farm itself due to the fact you don't have water retention or compaction or other issues like that. A lot of people also don't know, we are not limited to just pheasant and quail habitat. We are doing a lot of work in East Central Illinois, and we're moving into West Central Illinois to work on the duck factory. We're partnering with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and DU to do a lot of these small prairie potholes that traditionally existed in the prairie areas of Illinois. Because if you are a pheasant hunter, you know in the winter you usually want to head to the cattails because you're probably going to find some birds hanging around that area. And then what you guys probably all here are obviously the most interested in, we are growing our prescribed fire initiatives within the state with our prescribed fire coordinator positions and also with assisting with the growth of PBAs just like National Wild Turkey Federation is. If you are a landowner that is looking for work, in 2020 we had approximately 7 staff members within the state of Illinois. But in the last 3 years, now 4 years, we've kind of changed that a little bit. We now have biologists that cover every county of the state. We are looking at adding additional positions and having more coverage be done. But as of now, we have approximately 20 employees in the state that will work to help provide technical assistance to landowners that are needing help or needing questions answered about putting conservation into the ground. 2 of those positions are Daryl's position, which is the prescribed fire coordinator position. This position is going to assist our staff and a lot of other staff within other state agencies to learn to become more comfortable recommending prescribed fire to landowners, along with providing training to not only those partners, our staff, but landowners themselves on how to safely conduct prescribed fire on their land. And we'll help facilitate and guide individuals that are interested in creating PBAs in their local communities to help make the transition and creation of these a little bit easier. If you are interested in learning more about Pheasants Forever or about finding out the contact information from a biologist near you, I would recommend visiting our website. Especially, I know we're right near the borders of Wisconsin and Iowa. If you have land in those areas, that would be a great place if you're looking for a biologist in those states. If you want more specific information about Illinois Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever specifically, I would suggest visiting iHuntIL.com or visiting. We do have a Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever of Illinois Facebook and Instagram page that we do update several times during the week with programs and projects that we have going on across the state. Daryl, did you have any other items you would like to add?
I got a couple comments. I know we're here to talk about prescribed burning, and there is a huge need for prescribed burning. I sat down and thought about some of the questions you guys might ask here today. How often should I burn? Well, as a wildlife biologist, I recommend that you burn every year, at least a portion of your habitat, about half or 2/3, and leave 1/3 unburned. There's also been a discussion a lot about wildfires out and prescribed burning. And let me give you the difference between the two. Wildfires can be started naturally by lightning, spontaneous combustion, accidents by campfires, like Smokey tells us, misplaced matches, sparks. They do happen, okay? But there's no preparation. There's no planning. There's no regard to the wind or any of the weather conditions. So if it's extremely dry, those fires are going to go a lot faster. Wind and fuel load, weather, and rain all create factors in this. And many times, the delay in suppression or putting out the fire is delayed by hours or sometimes by days. Depends on the conditions out there and who sees the smoke. Now, prescribed fires, on the other hand, they start with a prescription. Now, what's a prescription? It's a burn plan. It's important to put together a burn plan, know about what kind of weather conditions that you burn in, and you want to have an objective of what you want to achieve. Why are you burning? Well, I'm here to help you to learn these things. Okay? I don't want to go through all of it. I'm not here to talk about specific lands or anything like that. But know that there is a prescription. That's why they're called prescribed burns. They're not called controlled burns either. They can get out of control, but we can manage those by learning what to do in the conditions that we were given. And control is immediate. There's no delay in controlling or suppressing a fire. Okay, with a prescribed burn, you have staff on site. When the match hits the ground, we have a prediction of what's going to happen. Okay, so then there's follow-up, a mop-up. Okay, you may have heard some of these terms used today. Followed by an evaluation. All right. We know what happens in a wildfire. It's catastrophic. Well, I know what happens in a prescribed burn. It's not necessarily catastrophic. It's beneficial. We have an objective to get it done. So, there are a number of reasons why we burn. We want to start, first and foremost, with a permit. We want to remove leaf litter. We want to blacken the soil. This blackened soil creates an opportunity for these seeds to germinate or to stratify. These are some of the words we use. To break the seed coat so those plants can germinate. We can improve insect populations and diseases by getting rid of some of the debris. Insects can hide in this debris, and so population densities get too high. Well, prescribed burning can actually lower those population densities of those insects that may be There's beneficial insects and there's also harmful insects. So, but we know that these animals have lived in these areas in prescribed 200, 300 years ago. They survived very well. They still have that innate ability to survive a fire. We create higher quality of habitat. I can go to so many landowners and say, okay, by burning on your land, we did nothing but improve it. It slows succession and it promotes growth. I want to thank you for your time here. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to contact me or ask some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. They touched upon public access, and our next panelist, Tony, is going to tell us a little bit about the program and recreational access program in Illinois that allows the public to get out and be a part of that program. And this is a critical thing, in my view. If we don't get the public out to have these experiences, we don't have anyone to carry on these kind of traditions. And it's so important for our youth in particular.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Kloppenborg. I'm the coordinator for the Illinois Recreational Access Program. IRAP is put on by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. We've been around since 2011. And we're partnered with several organizations, some who are in this room with us now. Basically, we lease private property for limited public hunting access. And by doing that, the landowner will receive a lease payment, a management plan, and access to cost share to enact the management practices that are recommended in that plan. Speaking of the management plans, we will provide cost share for those practices. We typically offer a 60-40 split on our cost share, so we'll cover 60% of that bill and you'll be liable for the other 40%. We do accept in-kind labor or cash payments for our cost share. And with today, we're all here about prescribed burning. So why do IRAP conduct prescribed burnings on their leases? Well, it's about the cheapest, most cost-effective way to impact wildlife and benefit the habitat, in my opinion. When we do these prescribed burns, you're going to be encouraging new, fresh growth, which will offer excellent grounds and cover for wildlife. You'll be also improving habitat availability for many species. You're going to stimulate regeneration of native flora and regeneration of declining habitats. And also pairing burns with other management just works very well. If you guys are out doing any kind of spraying for invasive species, if you pair that with fire, you're going to just increase what you're doing out there, and just works very well. So how can IRAP help you guys conduct this prescribed burn? We can help you across the planning, permitting, and execution of that burn. All our staff are S130, S190 certified. We have 4 or 5 prescribed burn managers on staff, and all the equipment we would need to do those burns. So if you guys have any interest in the program at all, or want to look into it further, there's our phone number, our email, and our website. And if you want to talk to me after our little panel discussion here, just feel free to join my ear. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Tony. This brings us to the point in the conversation to ask questions and start getting some feedback. Anyone else that spoke maybe this morning, if you got anything more that you would like to say, might be a good time. I have a microphone here that we can just pass down along the line. Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So the Joe Davis Conservation Foundation is the local conservation organization in the room here. Many of you know us, but I know there's some here that might not be as familiar with you. So we're a member-driven conservation organization. We have 3 programs: land preservation. We own about 2,000 acres of land. We open most of that to public access, some to hunting. We have about 5,000 acres in conservation easement with private landowners, permanently protected land for conservation easement held privately. That's our land conservation program. We also do stewardship, which involves prescribed burning. We burn, I think in the fall we burn something like 600 acres of land locally. Most of that is on private land, some of it's on public land. And one wing of our stewardship program is this acronym you're hearing, NISC, Northwest Illinois Stewardship Co-op. So that's a fee-for-service program. Some of the landowners in this room have hired NISC to do prescribed burns, invasive species control, timber stand improvement, planting forest, planting prairie. NISC does all of that as a fee-for-service, and NISC is a program of JDCF in our stewardship program. And then this third thing we do is education and outreach. Kind of every organization up here has a outreach and education program, and we do that again locally with folks. I have some information on the table out there. If you're interested in NISC, you can pick up a flyer. We're changing the name, just so you may hear some of our staff call it the Driftless Stewardship Initiative. NISC is becoming the Driftless Stewardship Initiative, DSI. There's another acronym that you can learn today. And we talked about prescribed burn plans. A lot of people up here said, I just brought an example of a prescribed burn plan. I'm going to leave that on the registration table. Take Jake Pulfer's card. Jake runs our NISC program. He has a card on there. It now says Driftless Stewardship Initiative on it, just so you know. But Jake's card, he can give you policies, burn plans, technical support, just like everybody up here is talking about. So you have a lot of resources in the room. One of them is JDCF fee-for-service program, NISC becoming DSI.
And we'll just pass that as questions come up. Alrighty, is there anyone out there that wants to be the first to ask a question?
I'll ask it.
Yeah.
This is for the turkey man. So we do the prescribed burns in the spring. We have woodlands and we have some grass areas. And like last year, we were burning them in the turkey nester in there. So is that, you advocate just fall burning because of turkey nesting time, or, you know, it seems like it's detrimental to them.
It's good to burn at different times of the year because you're gonna get different results. Fall burns will tend to give you more forward response, which is something that you definitely want to favor, but you kind of want to mix it up. If you're burning, you know, dormant season burns, if you're doing those burns prior to April, those hens shouldn't be nesting yet, so you don't have to worry about that. So if you want to do your dormant season burns, you want to do them prior to April. And if you're wanting to do, you know, like I said, I strongly encourage to do both fall and spring or dormant season burns. But that was one of the things that I also wanted to mention is that, as I alluded to in my opening comments, the data shows us that early brood range is the key to making more turkeys. And if you're not burning, you're not doing that. And I'll take that one step further. Really quality early brood range is year of disturbance. So if you're not touching a piece of your property every year, you do not have high quality early brood range. And I think in some cases, landowners, you know, they just see a turkey decline and they think, you know, their habitat's the same. Well, a turkey's home range is 8 square miles, it's 5,000 acres. So, you know, that brood range that they need, that they have to have, is a very specific kind of habitat that, you know, you may not even know that your turkey factory went out of business last year because it got dozed out and put into pasture or whatever else. But that's, you know, that's what I on some of the landowner workshops I've given them, I say dial. We had one place where there was a control, where there was no management, just open timber, nothing on the ground, and then there was a good savanna right across the road from it. And I said, dial out to 5,000 acres, and everybody that has that, send them a Christmas card, because they grew the turkeys you shot.
Answer your question okay?
Sure.
Did everyone hear the question? I should have asked this earlier. We can pass that around, but it's pretty good acoustics in here, so let me know if you can't hear something. Another question from the crowd at all? In the back?
I've heard of fish hatcheries, and we used to have a mallard duck hatchery in Hanover. Is there any method that you could raise pheasants or quail and increase the population using a man-made method?
We could both jump on that.
Yeah, we both are gonna have the same answer on that one. So Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever is actually against stocking programs. Research has shown they are a different species than a turkey. So turkeys have been successful on relocation and stocking programs, but it's not the same results with pheasants. So we do not encourage people to spend money on that, because a lot of times, to be honest, if you're happening to do a stocking program, it most likely means that there's something wrong with your habitat, whether you think it or not, because if that habitat was sustainable for those populations, they probably would be there. So we suggest, instead of spending money to buy birds that most likely will be dead in 48 hours because they lack instincts or have the lack of habitat to survive, it's better to spend that money on the habitat that can actually keep and sustain wild populations.
I'll take that one step with the turkeys. I get these calls pretty much every year throughout my region. Turkeys have very large home ranges, as I said. So if you don't have turkeys on your place, and even if I caught turkeys and put them on your place, they go to wherever the habitat already is. We've got telemetry data that shows that turkeys will go 70 miles from where you put them if they don't like where you put them.
They'll travel 10 miles because it didn't like the habitat it was. So if they don't like what you've got, they're gonna leave.
Anyone else?
Kind of keys off that. Could you describe the habitat of pheasants and quails versus turkey? Or how they're the same or different?
They're pretty similar. I guess the exception would be quail and pheasants like more of an open type habitat, more grassland oriented, whereas turkeys, they like that structure, which is, some open ground, bare ground, knee-high or lower herbaceous vegetation, dominated by forbs, not grasses. And the reason for that is baby birds eat bugs. So that's where the food is, and the structure they need is also important. And interesting finding, we're in the final field year of a 5-year turkey research project in North Missouri. And what we're finding from that data, and again, turkeys will use grasslands and they'll use woodlands, but we're finding that the hens that are using woodlands are twice as successful as the ones that are selecting open land.
Over here.
I got a question because the Wild Turkey Federation has a biologist, DNR has, or I should say a forester, DNR has a forester, I think JDCF does, and like was mentioned, Pheasants Forever has a precision ag. To get, as a landowner, to get more bang for a buck for cost share, is it beneficial to have all 4 entities come to your property, or, is there overlapping?
So a lot of times, you don't, to save us cost and travel, we all work together, and we're working within the NRCS, so we do communicate with each other. I speak with his foresters on a weekly basis.
So it's collaboration.
Yeah, so a lot of people think we're all fighting against each other, and we can't touch them because another entity is, we're talking to each other all day. So if we don't have the programs or the knowledge, we can put you in connection with each other. So reach out to any of us and let us know what your goals are, and if we can't facilitate those, we can help connect you with the correct entity that can achieve your goals.
That's been my experience as well as a private landowner. I have a wildlife management plan, a forestry management plan, and, missed one, prairie preservation and restoration, and, there's one other one too. But anyhow, they do all tend to come together and, work together, so, excellent. Get your question answered, okay? Anyone else? Over here in the green.
Don't you think there's some competition between the turkeys and the smaller upland birds?
Is there competition between the upland game?
I'll let you take that, Mike, so.
Yeah, they evolve together through time, and what usually happens is, as quail and pheasant habitat succeeds down the path of succession, it becomes turkey habitat, and that's kind of what happened. I mean, our landscape, and a good example of that, not just from, how it's changed from historically what was more friendly for quail and pheasants to now what's more friendly for turkeys. One thing, the turkeys are definitely in decline, and one of the things, there's a whole bunch of reasons why, but if you think about bush honeysuckle, what we have now and what we had 20 years ago when the decline started happening, it's a much different picture, but it happened gradually enough that most folks don't notice how dramatic the difference is, and turkeys do not like thick. They're going to avoid thick cover. If they can't see 50 feet, they're not going to use that space. And you're going to have a hard time finding a place throughout the state that's not choked out with honeysuckle if it's not being managed. It's just now kind of starting to creep into Missouri. I mean, the first probably 2 or 3 counties in from the river to the west has got the same problem the whole state of Illinois has. And I've got a state board member in Missouri that is, he's mortified about how few turkeys he has on his 400 acres. And he's thinking it's raccoons and we need to start killing raccoons. And I said, your place is not turkey habitat anymore. It's changed gradually enough over 20 years that even a diehard turkey hunter doesn't recognize that this is not turkey habitat anymore.
Over here?
I think it's for Darrell, because I appreciated the way you emphasized that it's prescribed burning is not a guarantee not uncontrolled fire. In other words, in the rare cases that it might get out of control, I guess I'm reading to, is there ever a requirement to have the local fire department kind of backing up? I know some regions they require, pre-notice, you're going to do a site.
Yeah, what we do as biologists is actually contact the local authorities. We talk either to the communication center, in my area it's the Macon County Fire District, and let 911 know that we're going to be out prescribed burning, and then we indicate a time window when we're going to be on site, and usually we'll start, we may start at 7:30 in the morning, and we're usually wrapping up, mopping up by 3. If something, we're going to be leaving by 3, so we go, we mop up the area. I have, on occasion, had spot fires from, say, burning through a ditch and had a brush pile in there that caught back up on fire. Police or fire department were called. However, there was no danger because all the fuel around that pile was completely incinerated, and it was just this little smoky stump. What we did wind up doing is the fire department captain called me and said, "Hey, we got a fire down." I said, "I'll go take care of it." I went down there and threw 5 gallons of water on it, and it was out. So we generally have a good communication with our fire districts. Their goal is to suppress fire, and our goal is to kind of manage and control it.
Daryl, thank you for that. I've had very similar, and a lot of it's learned by experience, and I think the fire departments, after a few of those experiences, they start realizing the benefits of having a good crew of prescribed fire burners and the coordination, so. Steve, you had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to answer your question. Again, prescribed burn plan, at the end, one of the sections is emergency information. Sheriff, it's got Joe Davis County Dispatch. If this was in Stevenson County, we'd have Stevenson County Dispatch. So we're not calling 911, we're calling the dispatch ahead of time saying we're gonna do a prescribed burn on this fire, or on this property. Again, we'll be here from such and such to such and such. We also have neighbors who we're gonna call. And these are neighbors, sometimes we're just doing out of convenience, and sometimes these neighbors have been asked to be contacted. So if they've asked to be contacted, they're always on the contact list ahead of when we burn. So again, can't emphasize enough, all of these burns have a plan, and part of that plan is letting everybody who needs to know you're burning, in particular the fire districts, that you're going to be out there where you're going to be. And then back to mop-up, sometimes on some of these woodland burns where we have a lot of down timber, they haven't been burned for a long time, so there's a lot of fuel out there, and we can't burn around every single stick that's on the ground or log that's on the ground. So we often station UTV with water on it and a staff person to stay overnight and just make sure it goes out at night. The last time, maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night, does any mop up, stays on site, is there, and we let the fire district know we've got somebody on site.
Great. I'm just going to throw in one thing here that I had. For the group here, when should you call the fire department? And I think from experience, and you guys can jump in, if you see a crew with yellow suits on and signs out along the road, prescribed fire, those are pretty good indications that it's a planned event. You've got people there on the ground, they're doing it, and you probably do not need to call the fire department. Now, if there's nobody around, or you see somebody going like hell down the road with the ATV away from the fire, you might think that's a different situation. So, but really, most of the time when you call, if everybody follows this prescribed burn plan, they will have notified, and the operator on the 911 center or whatever will know that that's going on. And we'll probably ask, do you see some people around with yellow suits on and helmets and those types of things. But great questions, good discussion.
I'll add to that, to the importance of communication on the front end. Because I actually had an experience where I burned, and then my neighbor on the other side of one of the in-holdings also burned, and the one that was in the middle does not. The guy that was doing the burn, my neighbor that was doing the burn, did not notify anybody. She called the fire department, an entire army of people came out there, and he got billed. So that, you need to notify your neighbors too.
Other questions? Back here.
If you have a smaller wood plot, so like, say if you have like a couple acres of wood, I'm not necessarily gonna want to like burn my woods by getting the whole group together and all that kind of stuff, because it's not a big job. What kind of training or safety stuff should I take into account before I decide to do that with my smaller stuff?
We had a group this morning that kind of hit upon that, and one of the difficulties is it's really hard to put an exactness because fire is risk.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of things that, if the wind comes up, if there's a garage located near that or something, those are risks that a private landowner would take on by doing it themselves. Even the different organizations, they have liabilities and risks that they take on every time that they light. So
is there a safety thing that we can do, or some sort of training or something?
Well, I will be doing private land training, So, I mean, when I'm in your area, or if I'm up in this area, I'll do some advertisement, and we will put on a burn workshop of some sort. That is really why I've been hired, to help NRCS and other government organizations, as well as NGOs and private landowners, to put on a workshop. So if you're interested in putting on a workshop, contact me. Maybe we'll just have a workshop at your place. Somebody else had a question in the back here.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
had a question actually for Jillian. So, since we're surrounded by all of your beautiful expressions of all of your knowledge in this area, and I think it's a good example of just an evolution, and you are young with a long future ahead of you, and I'm wondering if you can or are able to comment on where you might see yourself, what kinds of works of art might you work on in the future, in relative to the essential human influence on our landscape.
I think that one's kind of tricky to answer in this context. I think one of the things that really interests me about a project like this, like a symposium like we're doing today, is the opportunity to speak to members of the public about things they actually probably deeply care about, but maybe don't know a lot about. And that can take a lot of forms. I think prescribed fire is actually a really excellent example of something that's actionable. It's really relevant, almost everywhere actually, but especially here, and also out west where I've been working both in Oregon and in New Mexico. So how do you present information to people who actually are probably pretty receptive to it in a way that's interesting, in a way that's inspiring, in a way that actually will promote action in the future? And to me, one of those ways is through art. Art is the doorway through it. Things like the children's book outside, things like the paintings here, things like there's been so much wonderful art about wildfire recently, especially stuff in sort of the video and cinema world, where you really just give people access to an idea that they then can take and make their own. And then when you supplement it with information like we're doing today here with the panel, then hopefully people leave these things and like, well actually, that changed my life in a way where I can go and do something about it. I can sign up for a burn workshop, I can get my S-130, I can get my S-190, and then within the community here today, you just found a whole bunch of other folks who are also interested in this. So I think for me, in my next position with the Forest Service, and just down the road, sort of as an artist and a thinker more generally, how do we make these things interesting and palatable, and really moving? Because I think they can be, and we don't talk about that very often.
Another question back here, is the line ahead?
Yes, so, does the state of Illinois or the IDNR allow you to do woodland burns if you have a forestry management program? I haven't read the details of mine in a couple of years, but I thought I remember seeing in there that it does not allow fires on property.
I can take this. Yes, if you have a prescribed burn plan made up, you can burn on your timber. And your management plan usually does recommend that if your forester does think it is needed.
I would just add to that you would want to make sure that you look at that plan and talk to the forester that helped prepare it, and make sure that there may be areas, maybe there's an area that has a young planting, you may want to delay prescribed fire in that area because of the fatality on small trees. But yeah, you would want to work through that.
And another thing is, where I'm at in Missouri, the very, very little of the timber is anything other than pallet or block or, it's low quality wood. But if you've got stave wood or veneer quality white oak, you probably don't want to burn those sites. So that would be a forester's recommendation. Following, you're the landowner. If you don't care about that, and you'd rather, your focus is more on wildlife benefits, then you're the landowner. And that plan is tailored to you and what your objectives and goals are. But, if you've got veneer quality wood on your, on your property, you probably don't want fire in it because it's gonna impact the value of that timber.
Yeah, I wanted to restore mine to Savannah, and they said you can't do that with the forestry management program. It's gotta be woodlands, timber, stuff like that, because it's not suited to that. I have those oaks that are this big, gigantic bur oaks on it, and wanted to burn underneath those, allow those to grow, and, the Savannah continue to prosper, but I was told that's not part of the.
A couple of comments too on that, because he's managing some of that same type of thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, John touched on this, but it's your management plan, and you can have it amended. I guess I am a little bit surprised. It depends on which forest you're dealing with. But you should be able to amend that plan. Now, the way the state law is written related to these forest management plans, timber production kind of has to be a component of it, but it doesn't have to be the total commitment or total plan. So at least as I understand the law right now, what I've been told, you probably need some timber production or potential at some point, but you should be able to amend that plan. I've done that several times on my property, and actually the co-op, we created a forest and wildlife management plan rather than just a forest management plan, and bring more wildlife habitat into that. And I know our local district forester for DNR is very supportive. That's Paul Dane, and he actually helped write that plan and incorporate more wildlife. Hopefully your district forester would be the same. Tony is with the DNR as well. I'm involved in the IRAP program, and they help cover the cost of some of those amendments, so there may be opportunities to work with one of these organizations and help get that cost covered as well.
The forestry management plan, for some of you who might not realize, gives you a very large tax benefit as well. You pay 1/5 of your property tax you otherwise would pay under the Forestry Management Plan Act. Yeah.
I have a comment and a question. I have expected to hear all these different hear from all these different organizations coming and hearing them all reinforce the importance of woodland burns. So this is really eye-opening, I think. My question is, I'm wondering as a property owner, and I could probably ask Brad later or something, like how far in advance, or would you have to do any preparations if you decide you want to do a woodland burn?
I can take that if you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
Been involved in burning for 35 years, primarily with Pheasants Forever, but several other organizations as well. And that's an excellent question because it takes a fair amount of time for all of those things to line up and take place. Probably the first thing, usually in the October-November timeframe, you have to request a permit to allow you to do a burn. And that usually takes a couple of months to get back, probably January, February, back from the state that allows that burn in the spring or the fall of that following year. But it takes 3 months, probably you should plan on, of submitting that, and you can go online and find the process to do that. The second part is writing that burn plan and getting that approved through the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Conservation Department as well. And there's a backlog there. We don't have enough people to really do that, and so those really get kind of compressed. I know Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, probably the turkey are all helping DNR with those approval processes, but that can take a couple months as well. So you really should start that process before the beginning of the year for the following year. Did everything?
I was going to say, it's a little different process. So we don't do a lot of burn plans with the DNR. We're doing more of the burn plans on the federal side of things. But it is one of those that if you're wanting that information, it is a similar timeline on that. So if you're wanting to burn next week, I got bad news for you, probably not gonna burn this spring. Especially with getting the EPA permits, there is quite a bit of a backlog on those, and it can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to get those. And those are typically, as far as I'm aware, almost every burn plan, you need to have one of those permits along with the burn plan for that.
I would probably recommend that you contact a local forester or your wildlife manager in your area. Those can be found on the DNR website. The DNR biologist would come out, walk around your timber, ask you some questions. If you choose to get a timber management plan, you can say, well, I'd like to do, say, wood for fireplace, cut wood, or selective thinning, timber stand improvement. You can manage for wildlife. Those are all various things, and that biologist is going to give you the plan to help you achieve that goal. Okay. If you want to prescribe burn, that entity will help you to put that permit together and get it sent off to the right people. I know when I was a district wildlife biologist, I worked with landowners and helped them design a wildlife management plan and then put together a burn plan for them and submit it to the state, however the state wanted or needed it.
Yes, please get involved with the offices in your region and the wildlife managers, the foresters and so forth. They all are very helpful and can help you through that process.
Karen, the other thing you'll need is time to set up your burn breaks. So there's on the ground preparation you have to do in addition to the paperwork everybody's talking about. So you need to be thinking about that. And that can be part of your timber plan, your forest management plan. But in some cases, those breaks might already be out there if you have trails and they're wide enough and there's not any fuel on them. But there's other things you have to take into consideration on the land to get ready as well.
Yeah, it's very difficult to put in a break the week before the burn because all you do is provide a bunch of fuel for the fire to travel across. Excellent point, thanks, Steve.
So think about a year.
One more question.
Long story short.
Over here?
Everybody's favorite woodland creature, ticks. Anybody knows that current research on effects of on tick populations with prescribed fire?
I've heard and read that the bush honeysuckle, for instance, really is excellent habitat for ticks. And so by decimating some of those types of species, you're probably going to improve that.
Anytime you can burn those critters is good. I think it's good.
Their life cycle, they need the humid conditions, so when you burn fuel off, you basically create an environment they don't do well in.
Thank you. Jay?
To that point, I can tell you that in southern Illinois, our U of I forester and some others are working on that very subject.
Okay.
So we should have some new data soon.
I'm sorry we're going to have to cut to the end here. It was just a great pleasure of mine to have this today and have all of you participating, being a part of this, asking questions. That's how we all learn, and hopefully the community benefits from this. We'll try to do some things in the future, some training, maybe a follow-up workshop, seminar, those kind of things. Give us feedback on what you've learned today and what you'd like to see in the future. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.